So if China were to continue on the trajectory it's on now, what would the situation look like 50 years from now, 100 years from now, assuming nothing changes?
Well, I don't think we have to look 50 or 100 years. I would say, 50 to 100 days might do the job, right? Over just the last couple of years. So I don't mean to be alarmist, right? I mean, China is not like, people are not going to die of thirst, in 2023 in China. But even looking at the last couple of years of where they already are and what they've experienced has shown that the drought conditions, limited rainfall, often exacerbated by heat waves, are leading to pretty acute water shortages that are, in some cases, leading to direct curtailment of water allocations for the manufacturing sector, and are also having knock-on effects for the power sector, right? So electricity generation, which in most of its forms requires a lot of water, and I can talk about that separately. The water crisis is leading to a power crisis, because if all your power plants or most of your power plants require water to function, no water means no power. And then no power creates its own set of problems, right? In some cases that compound the water issues. So you're seeing curtailments in the water sector. You're seeing curtailments in the power sector, and both of those have been directed by government policy to impact industry first. So you're seeing furloughs and mandatory closures of industry already in the last couple of years. That's sort of the tip of the spear, right? That some sectors get hit first. And that's already happening, right? There's just not enough to go around. And so you essentially then are in a world of rationing. And then it's often a matter of government policy, as well as, constraints of infrastructure and geography to figure out who gets to use the water that's left.
That's what happened this past summer, right? When there's like massive heat wave in parts of like Sichuan, Chengdu. Like I remember them. You remember the photos of like they shut the subway down, or like they weren't powering it with, like, they didn't have the lights on, so people were riding the subway in the dark during the heat wave.
Well, that's right.
But I also ironically remember the subways that were caught in the floods.
Oh yeah, that was a different time.
Well, yeah. But like, this is the weird thing that's happening. There is, like, in some places way too much water all at once, and in some places there's just not enough.
But maybe the Communist Party can, distribute all the resources equally.
Take water from the south and move it to the north?
If only there was some kind of, water project that could handle that.
Well, that is a good question. What about the
South North Water Project?
Yeah.
So there are a couple really big water projects, mega infrastructure projects, and there are a couple of issues here. One is the fact that the amount of water that's needed to really make a dent in the problem is mind-bogglingly enormous, right? So you need a lot of water, right? And getting it across hundreds, if not thousands of kilometers of very difficult terrain, often difficult substrate, building these pipelines, these are often unprecedented engineering challenges, let alone the cost. On top of that, you have the fact that southern China, which is where they're looking to draw the water from, is now having its own water shortages, many of those driven by climate change. Those are newer developments by and large. Those are, of course, exacerbated by the very rapid economic growth in China, which has been heavily concentrated in many cases in the southern part of the country. So anything that requires water, anything that's, bringing in more people, whether it's the Pearl River Delta, Guangzhou, Guangxi, pick your southern region. There is increasing demand on the resources they have, as well as these droughts that are becoming more acute in the south of the country, which is where that water is supposed to come from, right? To slake the thirst of the north. So it's an unproven premise that these massive water shifting infrastructure projects are capable of solving the problem.
I do want to ask about hydroelectric power, actually, because it's been so much a part of China's identity in a lot of ways. Like my grandfather worked on a hydroelectric dam, and like there was so much, like the Three Gorges, like being like such a huge dam, and like the government was, trumpeting it as this huge achievement, and
Yeah, it was very much like a cultural thing. Like, this is the Communist Party struggling against heaven and earth and creating this new China.
and just like being able to build these huge feats of engineering, right? Like these dams all along.
I mean,
the rivers.
there's also more than 2,000 smaller dams, I think, across the country.
Yeah. So lots of dams. How does that fit into the picture of the water crisis?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. Hydropower is a huge part of the power mix. It's a building block of the national economy. As you were mentioning, it's sort of part of the cultural identity of modern, communist era China. That you have kind of the 20th century industrial mentality of conquering nature, right, or harnessing nature in the service of industry, right, and human society. And that's largely been an accomplishment, right, of China as well as other industrialized countries, is really taking advantage of these resources through feats of engineering. And those are undoubtedly success stories, right? The Three Gorges Dam and these other giant new dams that China is still developing and bringing online, the Baihatan project, are 10 gigawatt project. These are among the very, very largest hydropower projects ever undertaken in the world, anywhere. And they have been successes. There are, the book isn't closed though, right? Because even having built a dam and gotten it to function, you still need regular flows of water to replenish the dam so that it continues to serve its purpose. And there are also impacts of damming these major rivers downstream. Now, in China, the dams were often quite purposely constructed to prevent the devastating flooding that would previously happen in the Yangtze Basin and other places, right? So there are benefits that come from harnessing and controlling these natural forces, right? But they also can have adverse effects. And those adverse effects, such as, you then don't have enough silt, that then is sort of a natural fertilizer, right, for farmland that's on the riverbanks. You can exacerbate the water availability issues that may exist seasonally or during times of drought downstream, right? Because you've restricted the flow. And you may also have issues in the body of water itself, right? And so, silt can build up in dams, and you need to have a certain amount of the water body, the reservoir behind the dam, filled for the dam to actually function as a hydropower source. The U.S. West, by the way, is also really suffering from this. Hoover Dam, is having a catastrophic crisis, and it may lose its ability to generate hydropower this year because of an acute drought. And so these are ongoing issues that China is facing at Three Gorges and other dams, right? So it's both, I would say it's more a symptom of the problem, its vulnerability, than a cause, because the water still is usable, right? However, actually, there are also some ways that hydroelectric dams can consume water, which may be a little counterintuitive. But when you dam a river, right, and you create a lake, the water tends to get warmer because it's just sitting there rather than flowing. And it also evaporates more. And so you are actually using or losing more of the water to evaporation often when you have a lot of these dams. So there is sort of a contribution to the water crisis, but more, I would say, the hydropower sector is a part of the power generation vulnerability that I was talking about, right? You have the other sectors, other types of power generation also demand water, which I can talk about. Hydro is obviously, a sector that is entirely dependent on water. And so, your dam isn't full, you can't use your hydropower dam resource.